Are you bored of trying to play Madden in a realistic fashion, only to be stopped in your tracks by an AI that seems to know every single one of your next moves? Well, if that's your issue, then you're in luck, as this video will give you the best in-game slider settings to allow you to play Madden 2023 in a realistic fashion. Just a quick note before we start, these sliders are designed with all-pro difficulty in mind. So if you play on all Madden, then you'll need to increase almost all of the user sliders and decrease all of the AI sliders in order to achieve the same realistic feel. Right, so to change the sliders, you'll need to go into settings where you'll immediately see a list of options for you to alter. The very first batch of sliders we'll be going over are penalties. Also, keep in mind that these settings will only be realistic if you don't make any changes to coach adjustments at all, as these have a direct impact on penalties. Anyway, for these, you'll want to have offside at 70, false start at 70, offensive holding at 65, face mask at 65, illegal block in the back at 50, roughing the passer at 50, defensive pass interference at 70, and then the rest of the options down here want to all be switched on. The next set of settings are for the game options and are almost entirely subjective, so you can alter these to whatever suits you, but for the most realistic gameplay in general, here's what we'd advise. For skill level, you'll want to go with All Pro or All Madden if you're an advanced player, and then for game style, you'll want to go with Simulation, and quarter length, you'll want to go with 10 minutes. Then you want the play clock on, the accelerated clock on, and the minimum play clock time between 15 to 20 seconds. Then down in the gameplay helpers section, you'll want to have auto flip defensive play call on, and then the next two are actually optional. So both of these options make the game a little bit easier, so defensive ball hawk will mean that your players will be able to intercept a little bit easier when they throw a bad pass, and then defensive heat seeker assist is essentially allowing your control player to be locked onto their quarterback, or whoever is carrying the ball at the time. So if you're an advanced player, then you can turn both of these off, but I like to have the defensive ball hawk on and then the defensive heat seeker assist off. I think that makes it pretty balanced, and it also means that you don't miss out on easy interceptions when you should be catching them. And then finally, you want the defensive switch assist to be on, the coach mode to be off, the injuries to be at 15, fatigue to be at 60, and player speed parity scale to be at 50. So that brings us on to the most important sliders for gameplay, which are the player and CPU skill sliders. These will impact how your players perform versus the AI. So the idea here is to make the game feel as balanced as possible. If your defensive players are easily dealing with their offense every single time, then you'll need to adjust the sliders so the CPU is slightly more capable. Otherwise, it's simply not going to be an enjoyable experience. So with that being said, going into the player skill sliders, you'll want your quarterback accuracy to be 30, your pass blocking to be 20, your wide receiver catching to be 50, your run blocking to be 35, fumbles to be 50, reaction time to be 60, interceptions to be 40, pass coverage to be 60, tackling to be 70, field goal power to be 60, field goal accuracy to be 45, punt power to be 60, punt accuracy to be 55, and then finally kickoff power to be 65. These sliders will ensure that you have a more even playing field, as the CPU can often be pretty robotic in the way that they predict plays and also how they perform on offense. So adjusting the player sliders to what we've suggested will provide more balanced gameplay overall. Then once you combine it with the CPU sliders, you'll have a pretty realistic feeling game. So for the CPU skill sliders, you'll want quarterback accuracy to be 50, pass blocking to be 60, wide receiver catching to be 45, run blocking to be 65, fumbles to be 55, reaction time to be 60, interceptions 45, pass coverage to be 55, tackling to be 30, field goal power to be 60, field goal accuracy to be 45, and then punt power to be 60, punt accuracy to be 55, and kickoff power to be 65. Now, even though these settings will undoubtedly enhance your experience in-game, you'll also need to choose the right game style. This is an option that the game gives you so that you can either have a fun and exaggerated experience or a more realistic or competitive one. The three styles are arcade, which is over the top with big plays and generally feels a bit more cinematic, simulation, which is designed to provide the most realistic experience, then finally competitive, which focuses more on stick skills and is used in the online head-to-head mode. As we previously mentioned, you'll want to choose the simulation game style, as this will give you the most realistic experience whilst playing, especially when you combine that with our slider settings. Now of course, even with these settings, you're bound to experience unrealistic plays, passes, or runs from time to time, as after all, it is a video game. However, if you do stick to these settings, then you'll have the closest experience to the real life game as possible. If this tutorial helped you, then why not watch another one we've done? We've even put it on the screen for you to click through to now.